Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for another edition of Zdan, the Bible Answer Man. Today's question is, how do you reconcile the two different dates of the Last Supper? John clearly demonstrates that the Last Supper was not the Passover feast, but the day beforehand. However, Mark, Matthew, and Luke seem to be quite clear that the Last Supper was the Passover feast. What we must first and foremost realize is that all the feasts are prophetical and must be fulfilled by God in His time. Reading in Leviticus 23, 5-7, in the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. In the first day, the 15th, ye shall have an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. So this verse tells us that the 14th day of Nisan is the Lord's Passover, which is the day of preparation for the Jews, which is the day before the high holy day of unleavened bread. Seeing that Yeshua is the Lord and the Passover lamb, He ate His Passover meal on the 14th day, the day of His Passover. And on the same day, He was also inspected to have no faults, as He was not guilty of what He was accused of. This was in fulfillment of the command that the Jews were instructed to inspect their lamb before the sacrifice. Their lambs have to be inspected as to have no faults or blemishes. It must be a pure white lamb. And on this 14th day, this lamb would be sacrificed, just as Yeshua was also put to death on this same day, the 14th of Nisan. The high holy day is the feast of unleavened bread, which is on the 15th day of Nisan, which is when they eat their Passover meal. So to fulfill this feast, Yeshua would have had to have eaten His Passover meal on the 14th day of Nisan, which would have been the evening of the day before. And then He would be betrayed by Judas on the same evening. Then He was to be inspected to have no fault on the same day, and also put to death at 3 o'clock of the very same day. John 19:31 tells us He was removed from the stake before the nightfall of the 14th of Nisan, because the 15th day starts on that evening, and that is the high holy day of unleavened bread. The verse reads, "The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation, that the body should not remain upon the stake on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath day was a high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken, and that they might be taken away." Yeshua is the fulfillment of this prophetic ceremony. The discrepancy you're talking about merely shows that through translation and manipulation, the New Testament has its problems. That is why we must rely on the prophetic message in the New Testament, backed by the Old Testament, to see the truth. Prophecy is the true language of God. The New Testament was written by Jews for Jews and for Gentiles to become Jews. And with the translation to Greek, to English, it loses much of its wording, and the implementation of pagan rituals has embedded the Christian religion. Acts 12:4 is a perfect example of that. It uses the word Easter, and Easter is just a pagan feast the Jews would have not aligned themselves with, and neither would God. Another point that we must look at in this topic is that Yeshua said in Matthew 12:40, "For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the whale, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." So that means for God to fully fulfill prophecy, Yeshua would have eaten His Passover meal on the Tuesday night, which would have been the start of the 14th day of Nisan. He was betrayed that evening and incarcerated and beaten. He was crucified on the stake that same day of the 14th of Nisan at 3 in the afternoon. He would have been in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, and then He arose at 3 on the Sabbath day, the Saturday, the 18th day of Nisan. So Yeshua is the Lord of the Sabbath, so He rose on the Sabbath day. Therefore, it goes without saying that Good Friday is the biggest farce there is, and Easter Sunday has nothing to do with the Lord rising. The first day after His rising on the Shabbat was first fruits. So therefore the feast of first fruits was fulfilled on that Sunday. I hope this answers your question. My book systematically addresses all the misconceptions and problems in Christianity and the plight of the faith in this age. So if you need a more in-depth explanation of this subject, please read my book. Until next time, love and shalom in Yeshua's name.